Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to make an attempt to show you how I've managed to scan a page from a quilting magazine with template shapes on it that I want to have the scan and cut out of fabric. Excuse me, again, I don't know, every time I video I seem to have this terrible cold or getting over it or something. Anyway, I have torn the page from the magazine. It was an old magazine, Quilt World 1992. I've placed it in my scanning mat. If you don't have a scanning mat, Jen did a tutorial on how to make your own. I've loaded the mat into the machine, and let's see if we can get a good trace on this. We're going to tell it to scan to cut data. You could save it to the machine, but then you don't have the option, if you wanted to change something about it, to take it into Canvas. If you save it to your USB, you can of course take your USB to your computer, upload the image into Canvas, and do some editing, changing size, whatever you want to do. I've done this twice successfully in test runs. I hope it goes well when I'm actually trying to video. And again, I'm doing everything one-handed, so one of these days I'm going to break down and buy a real camera with a tripod. This is just on my cell phone. Okay, so here we're getting an image of what it actually picked up. I don't like that image. It looks like it didn't get all of that square. Okay, so we're going to go back. No, hang on a second. What do I want to do here? I want to go to that, the outline, and I want to adjust this. Delete size. Go as low as you can go on this. Now see, we have the outlines. Doesn't appear to be broken up. Right? You can zoom in. Make sure all your shapes are there. I think it's okay. We'll tell it okay. And okay again. Alright. Now we want to get rid of whatever we can get rid of here that we know we don't need. Get rid of those cartoons at the top. Those aren't part of what we need. We'll tell it to save. We're going to save to the USB in case we want to alter it up in Canvas. Saving with file name number 18. Okay. Alright, we're done with this. Go home. Yes, it's okay to delete what we had on the screen. Now we're going to go to Pattern. Save data. We know we put it on the USB. We're going to go down to number 18. There it is. And there are our template shapes. Alright. Now, it's not good to have them all grouped together like that. And maybe you want to add more of one or something, and for convenience sake, we'll tell it okay. Because all our pieces are there. Now we're going to go here so that we can edit some stuff, move it around, and I see some junk down here that we don't need. So we go to Edit. The first thing I want to do is move this up in a better place. And that looks complete, so we're all good there. Now I'm going to move my triangle. That looks good. Don't have to worry about that. Now I'm going to move this piece up here. Great, don't need to worry about that. Now we have this square. Looks good, don't have to worry about that. Now we're going to go to this junk down here. It was just something we couldn't eliminate with our space, with our cropping. So we'll eliminate it now. It's hard to see, but you see that little thing is outlined in red. Click the garbage can, tell it to delete. There's another one. Okay. Delete, okay. Delete, okay. Delete, okay. Delete. There's a way you can select more than one. I'm sure you probably know how to do that. I'm just not doing it because I'm an idiot. No. Okay, so we've gotten rid of everything. If you want to be sure, you can go through each piece individually by selecting these arrows. It'll take you one by one. We know we need 4 shapes only. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it goes back to the first one. So we're done. So we tell it okay. There's all our shapes. I'm going to add a test cut. Test. I like the triangle because I like to make sure it's cutting my angles. Set. Here's a little triangle. Let's move it well down out of the way so we know it's not going to interfere with our templates. And we tell it okay. Now I want to unload my scanning mat. I have the low-tack mat with a fresh fabric support sheet applied. Well, I used it on the 2 tests, but you know what I'm saying. Here's a piece of fabric that I really starched the heck out of. So I'm going to line that up on my mat as best as I can one-handed. Okay. You should really try to make it so that all the edges of your fabric are on that sticky support sheet, because if they're not, when it's feeding into the machine, it can pull on it and roll up your fabric, and then you got all kinds of problems. Okay, again, I'm trying to do this one-handed, so that looks like it's good enough. I'm just comparing the lines on the mat to the lines on the screen and making sure I have all the area where it needs to cut covered. And don't mind this silly stuff on here. This is starch that I didn't allow to absorb well enough. I didn't have time to mess with it. So I like to take my handy-dandy little spatula. I need one of those things like Jen uses, that scraper thing. I don't have one yet. And I like to make sure that this is stuck down really well. Really, if that fabric starts scooting around, you're just not going to have a good time of it. Make sure there are no ripples, no bubbles, nothing like that. And I haven't been a huge proponent of cutting things like this on the scan and cut, like piecing parts, because I haven't had really good success. Surprisingly today, it worked really well. So I hope it goes as well here. Alright, so now I'm going to load this mat into the machine, hopefully. There we go. Alright, I'm going to tell it to cut. And when you start it, the first thing it's going to do is your test cut, and then it's going to stop so you can check. Alright, so let's go. Let's see if we're going to be happy. Alright, I can see right here. Look at that. Nice, clean cut. I will tell you what my settings are, but I'll also tell you that they can be different for everybody. It depends on how old your blade is, how much you've cut with it. I think even the humidity can play with how sticky everything is, and always do that test cut. If you do that, you're really going to save yourself a lot of headache. So now we know it cut fine. Let's hope everything is stuck down well, and let's watch it cut these templates. Let's see how we did. Okay, we eject the mat. Bring it over here. Look at that. Oh, there's a couple threads there that I didn't quite get. I don't know if you can see that. It was only like a thread. There we go. There are the shapes from the template. I have found that they lifted up pretty easily from the mat this time. The shapes are very clean. The seam allowance is already there, so if you took them to your machine and the 1/4 inch setting on your sewing machine is right, those are going to fit together perfectly. There's just a couple other things I wanted to say. When first time I scanned this page into the scan and cut, when I went to look at the templates individually, they were really weird sizes, like 3.23 and 3.18. And I thought, oh, what's going on here? The scan and cut is changing sizes on me, I bet you. But the first place where I started was I took the original template from the magazine, and I thought, well, let's see if they're accurate. And to my great surprise, they were weird. All right, if I wanted to measure this inside square, which is where the seam allowance is, the seam line is, it's not 2.5 inches. It's off. And the same thing with the outer. Okay, it's not 3 1/4 or whatever it's supposed to be. It's weird, and that's why the weird numbers were showing up on the scan and cut. Obviously, with squares, you could change the size right at the machine and have them be 3.25, which is 3 1/4 or whatever. If I was strictly using templates from the magazine, I'd leave them as they are. I don't know why they're weird in the magazine. Okay? But in any case, the other thing I wanted to say was, if you're just going to be using basic shapes like this, and you have these templates in the magazine, it might be easier, instead of having to scan this and mess around with it. There are tons of built-in shapes in the machine. You could measure, like, if you wanted to square 3.5 inches, alright, you could come to your machine. Okay, you go to basic shapes, you select a square, and here you can adjust the size of the square. I don't know where my stylet went. Hold on a second. Oh, please, I didn't mean to include my mess. I've been sick and busy, so anyhow. Now, you can adjust them as a whole. Like, what I don't want to say as a whole. You can keep the height and width ratio the same by doing nothing. See, if I change the height, if I increase it, it increases the width. Okay, so that ratio will stay the same. If I want separate, like let's say for some reason I want it to be a little shorter than wide. If you hit this button, it disables that ratio continuity. Okay, so now let's say I want to take this down. See, the height is changing and not the width. I think that this would probably be an easier way to create these basic quilting shapes. And like you saw in the beginning, there are tons of shapes. You know, you have triangles, trapezoids, rectangles, hexes, octagons. Everything is there. So it might be easier to just create the shapes from this menu at the machine or in Canvas and not bother with all this scanning bit. Plus, if you're making a block and you know it needs... Wait, let's go back. Let's go back to a silly square. Okay, and you tell it, okay. And let's say you need 4 of these. You know you need 4 4-inch squares. You can come here and you can go to edit it and tell it you need 4. Okay? Now it just gave you 4 of them. You tell it, okay. If you don't want to manually arrange them, go here. And it will arrange them for you. There you go. Can you see that? And there's also a way to, if you have weird shapes, different shapes, you can save it. You can make it choose the most fabric saving way too. That happens to be, because then it only has to make those few cuts to give you 4 squares. Anyhow, I know this is another too long video. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, ask. I'll try to answer. I'm not an expert at this stuff. I'm still learning. I like playing around, and I like solving problems and helping people. So, good luck. I wish you much success, and let us see the quilts when you're done. Thanks.